Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. We are done the NHL preseason. The Edmonton Oilers completed their game last night against the Vancouver Canucks. And now we move forward to Monday. Opening night rosters must be submitted Monday. And let me tell you, that's going to be a little bit of chaos for the Edmonton Oilers simply because of how training camp went this year. Plus, don't forget, we got some other variables happening in camp right now, but hopefully all that's solved by the time we get through today, tomorrow, Monday, and the Oilers, as long as they ice the roster correctly on Monday, will be set up for what will be an impactful start to the year compared to maybe the previous two, and maybe some better results as well, and possibly in that a Connor McDavid signing. So, what I will say right now is if you're new to the channel, friends, thanks for being aboard regardless, but if you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. Would love to have you as a full-time viewer on the channel. We're, pacing for 20,000 this year. I'd love to hit that before we get through through the season, okay? Let's not talk about the Olympic break quite yet. So, I guess before we get into the graphic from Bob Stauffer, thoughts on last night? I don't got any. I kind of skipped out on the game last night, kind of thinking, it's Friday night, catch up with some buddies in Airdrie and make sure I'm crossing off maybe the last nice night of fall, right? I don't know what it's like in your neck of the woods, but we got snow in the forecast for Thanksgiving weekend down here. So, yeah, I know I just said snow, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So, it's 20 degrees, 7 o'clock. Some fundraisers going on. Yeah, I'm going to go check that out rather than now watch the Oilers do what they did against the Canucks last night. And that said, too, I think, the regulars were in the lineup. The Oilers are a little banged up. There's a flu bug going around the room. It just all makes sense that, again, it's not a game that I must get up for and watch. So I want to then transition over to Bob Stauffer's final take on the preseason, saying it was a fairly entertaining game. And I'm not going to say it wasn't. I'm just going to say I set my expectations very realistic for last night. And I think based on just score alone, they were met. So, Bob Stauffer saying it's a fairly entertaining game to conclude the preseason for the Oilers. Matt Savoy was the best of the young guns, quick and creative. David Tomashik will be, with a heady play on the Kasperi Kapanen goal, will be an interesting next few days in oil country. And of course, that means, while Bob's hinting towards what will happen Monday with the opening night roster, I think it's very clear for Oilers fans that Tomashik, Savoy, Howard, Philp, Regula likely all will make the team out of camp. Again, how that factors on the roster on Monday is kind of a different question because the roster Monday is not the roster we will have on Wednesday. I guarantee that. The NHL gave a grace period on the you must play one game in the AHL rule. So, if you use David Tomashik as a waiver exempt player to clear some cap, to submit an opening night roster to start your salary cap journey for the 25-26 season, basically what that'll mean for the Oilers is they can call him back up on Tuesday. No misgivings there on the NHL part. And he ends up playing Wednesday. It's a guarantee at this point that Howard, Savoy, and Tomashik will all play on Wednesday. I think they've all done what has been asked of them. I think a lot of people would wish, Howard would have shown a little bit more. But I'm sure the Oilers are going to give, Ike Howard some time at the NHL level, even if it's 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, just anywhere between 5 to 15 games to figure it out. If not, he's probably comfortable going to Bakersfield after that point. And then as well, Matt Savoy is going to get his big runway here to be an impact player in the top six. Tomashik's looking to be a leader in that bottom six in terms of scoring production and in terms of offensive play. And, for Noah Philp as well, I think it's very clear that he earned a job last year, got some NHL time last year as well, and then has come back and doubled back with a solid effort in camp. Maybe not as loud of an effort, but when you've got so many guys making a loud effort at training camp this year, maybe Noah Philp got a little bit lost in that. If this was last year and Noah Philp had the performance he did this year, we're still talking about him just as much as we did last year. Whereas, Tomashik really came in as an unknown and really, really everything I've watched out of Tomashik, I've been impressed. Ike Howard has been a guy who has been heavily watched, knowing the fact that we, at one point this offseason, projected him to be alongside Connor McDavid to start the year. Matt Savoy, what can he do after getting his 4 NHL games last year? Can he be a productive force? And then, I guess to some extent, I really don't know how much I've heard about Andrew Mangiapane this month outside of some post game coverage. So there's a whole bunch of Oilers, and Alec Regula coming off surgery and recovery and all that, and really, really, really impressing the Oilers staff. I think that's why he's stayed around as long as he has this past year, and why he likely will not be placed on waivers come Monday. But it is crazy to me how the Oilers have truly had a training camp that actually achieved the goals of a training camp. Off the hop there, the split squad game against Calgary and then the victory next game against Winnipeg, I believe it was. You wish the Oilers would have maybe won some more games in the training camp session here in the preseason. But, once this flu bug started hitting, and obviously the injuries to the bigger guys like, Max Jones, I think Matthias Janmark's been banged up, Zach Hyman. And then as well, you've got Vasily Podkolzin, who missed a chunk of time in the preseason because of having to go back home. It's kind of a situation where maybe the roster wasn't as strong as it could be start to finish in the preseason, and because of that, the results aren't there. But this is a different preseason, I think, based on the effort level, the win-a-job mentality from some of the younger guys and some of the roster guys not on the roster last year. I really think it comes down to a factor where it was a much more productive preseason, and I think as well the Oilers rewarding Chris Knoblauch with a contract extension in the preseason would show they valued a different attitude, a different approach, and a much more straightforward, let's get the job done idea here from the Oilers staff and players in this preseason compared to last year and maybe the year previous. We know last year was a little bit brutal from an Edmonton Oilers fan perspective because the Oilers looked old and slow. They were taking their time out there. They were being methodical and really not delivering any results worth celebrating in the preseason last year. And then they go back to the Stanley Cup Finals. So who am I to judge, right? I could sit here and tell you how much nicer it was to watch this team take the preseason seriously, or at least a bulk of the players who weren't either sick or injured be able to seize opportunity. And it could all mean nothing. The Oilers could be out in the first round. That's kind of the hard part of playing so many months of hockey and starting this thing in the early parts of September after we get going with captain skates. So it's just crazy to me here as the camera starts glitching out now. Of course, that would happen as it's just crazy to me how that all works out as an Edmonton Oilers fan sometimes, just to say, you actually get a fairly entertaining preseason, as Bob Stauffer said here, and it might actually mean nothing for the Edmonton Oilers at the end of the day. Again, I think two big names, and it seemed pretty appropriate all preseason to keep focusing on those two. Savoy and Tomashik, so as they go, so will go the Oilers. Sorry, the camera's all screwed up there, so I'll leave that alone. But friends, it's going to be an interesting next weekend, and obviously it's going to be an interesting go into the into what will be a very impactful Monday for the Edmonton Oilers. I think with the camera being a little screwed up here, I am going to head my way out of the studio for this morning, get on with the weekend, and we'll stay tuned for whatever happens today. Of course, expect Matt Tompkins to be assigned to the Bakersfield Condors. There may still be a cut or two today. I'm not sure what the Oilers' plan is as of now. But for right now, a preseason up and done for the Edmonton Oilers, and we look forward to the final few days. Oh, by the way, we didn't at all talk about what could be coming down the pipe on Monday. Bob Stauffer saying it's not impossible. There's a signing on Monday or something for the Edmonton Oilers. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens. For right now, though, I am up on out of here.